Snow fell like ash from a broken sky on Christmas Eve, blanketing the Wyoming plains in a silence so heavy it felt alive. Miles from the nearest town, where fences creaked and cattle huddled close against the cold, a lone rancher rode his horse back toward the dim outline of his house. His name was Caleb Holt, a man carved by grief and distance, with shoulders broad from years of labor and eyes dulled by memories. He never spoke aloud. Christmas had never meant much to him since the winter his wife and child were buried beneath this same unforgiving land. He had learned to endure the holidays the way he endured storms, head down, moving forward alone. But that night, as the wind howled and the moon hid behind swollen clouds, something stopped him near the old barn. At first, he thought it was a bundle of rags discarded by passing hands that never came this far. Then the bundle moved. A woman lay curled against the barn wall, thin coat soaked through, dark hair clinging to her pale face. Her breath came shallow, lips trembling. She was awake, but barely. Her eyes, when they opened, were filled with fear, exhaustion, and a loneliness so deep it struck Caleb like a blow to the chest. She did not speak. She simply watched him, as though he might vanish if she blinked. The cold had already begun to claim her, and Caleb knew that look too well, the look of someone who had nowhere left to go. Caleb dismounted slowly, careful not to startle her. He crouched, noticing the way her hands were cracked and red, how her boots were too thin for the snow. She spoke then, softly, her accent unfamiliar, her English broken but careful. Her name was Mei Lin. She had come from San Francisco with a railroad crew, promised work and warmth. But the winter had taken the jobs, and the men had taken the last train east. She had walked for days, sleeping where she could, hiding when she heard voices, surviving on scraps and stubborn hope. When she reached the ranch, her legs gave out. She expected nothing now, not kindness, not cruelty, only the cold to finish what the journey had begun. Caleb listened in silence, his breath fogging the air between them. He had spent years convincing himself that solitude was safety. The caring only led to loss. But something in the way she spoke, not begging, not accusing, just telling the truth, cracked the shell he had built around himself. He removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, then relaxed, eyes filling with tears she tried to hide. He stood and offered his hand, rough and steady. His voice was low, simple, almost reluctant, as if the words surprised even him. "Come home with me," he said. Then after a pause, softer, "If you want, for a moment." The world seemed to hold its breath. Mei Lin took his hand. It was warm, and for the first time in weeks, she believed she might live through the night. Inside the ranch house, firelight danced across wooden walls, worn smooth by time. Caleb helped her sit near the hearth, brewed tea the way his mother once had, and set bread and stew before her without a word. Mei Lin ate slowly, reverently, as though afraid the food might vanish. The warmth brought color back to her face, but it also loosened the memories she had kept locked away. Her family left behind, the ocean voyage, the promise of a better life that had turned into a winter of hunger and fear. Caleb listened again, seated across from her, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the fire. He told her little about himself, only that the ranch had been quiet for a long time. Outside, the snow thickened, sealing them off from the rest of the world. When he showed her the spare room, she hesitated at the doorway, unsure if this kindness came with a cost. Caleb met her eyes, his own guarded but sincere. "You're safe here," he said, "at least for tonight," as she lay beneath warm blankets. The sound of the wind no longer felt like a threat. For Caleb, sitting alone at the kitchen table long after the house went quiet, Christmas Eve felt different, not lighter, not joyful, but changed. As though fate, cruel and unexpected, had knocked on his door wearing snow and sorrow, asking if he still remembered how to open it. Morning arrived pale and cold, sunlight glinting off endless white fields. Mei Lin awoke slowly, disoriented, then overwhelmed by the realization that she was still warm, still alive. Caleb was already outside tending to the animals, but he left fresh bread on the table, a small gesture that spoke louder than words. Days passed, then weeks. Mei Lin helped where she could, mending clothes, cooking meals, learning the rhythm of the ranch. She spoke little at first, but her presence filled the house with a quiet gentleness Caleb had forgotten was possible. Yet the world beyond the ranch did not share his kindness. Word spread. Whispers followed. A Chinese woman living alone with a widowed rancher drew stares. Judgment and threats masked as concern. Men from town came under the guise of holiday greetings and left warnings instead. Caleb felt the old fear return, the fear that caring for someone meant inviting danger. Melin noticed the change in him, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes tracked the road as though expecting trouble. One night, she told him she would leave when the snow melted. She said it calmly, gratefully, unwilling to be the reason his life became harder. Caleb said nothing then, but inside him, something rebelled fiercely against the idea of her absence, the storm that came in early. January was the worst in years, cutting the ranch off completely. When the roof of the old barn collapsed, Caleb and Mei Lin worked side by side through the night. Snow biting at their skin, trust binding them closer than words ever could. In that struggle, Caleb finally spoke of his wife, his child, the silence that had followed their deaths like a second winter. Mei Lin listened, tears freezing on her lashes, and told him that grief was not something to outrun. It was something to carry together. When dawn broke, the storm spent. Caleb looked at her as though seeing her for the first time, not as a stranger he had rescued, but as a soul who had found him when he was lost too. Later, when spring finally softened the land, Mei Lin stood at the fence with her small bundle packed, prepared to honor her promise. Caleb walked toward her, heart pounding harder than any storm he had faced. "I meant it that night," he said quietly. "Come home with me, not just for the cold, not just because you needed shelter, but because I don't want this place to be empty again." Mei Lin searched his face, then smiled through tears. She set the bundle down. The ranch, once a monument to loneliness, became something else, a place where two broken journeys ended, not in sorrow, but in choice, courage, and a love born on Christmas Eve, when a single act of kindness changed both their lives forever.